Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final week in review, or in this case, half a week in review, maybe, because we met last Friday. My name is Elena. I am joined today by this whole team. I'll ask you all to introduce yourselves and your costumes, please. Let's start with Michael.
Okay. I am Michael Shinall, one of the designers of the game. Costume, Fisto, with fully articulated fisting glove.
So a better Fisto, right?
Yes, this is the Mark II version from last time.
No one can stop his opposable thumb.
Yeah. Thumb is a very good evolutionary characteristic, really. Well, I'm Almeida. I'm also one of the designers for He-Man, and I am He-Man. It's
the man himself.
Or Prince Adam, depending on how you look at it.
No! What are you talking about, Leo? Totally not the same person.
Yeah.
What are you saying? Please stop this blasphemy. Let's keep going. Hello, Kenneth.
Hi, I'm Kenneth. I'm producer. I'm dressed as Ninja today. Asia represent. All right.
Hello, everyone. I'm Guilherme Goulart. I'm one of the producers, along with Kenneth, for Clash for Eternia. I'm dressed up as Bo from the She-Ra expansion. And this is an interesting fact. This is from Julia Ferrari, one who's not only a graphic designer in our team, responsible for the banners, for the stretch goal banners, optional buys, all that jazz you see on the campaign. She made this for me. So she's awesome.
She's a pro.
Yep, it looks incredible. Well, let's wait for people to join in. I see many already have, but let's wait a few more minutes. So how has this week been for you all? Exciting week, huh? In the campaign. Guilherme, you run it on a daily basis. How has this week been for you?
It's been great. I think there's a lot of figures, a lot of content that people are waiting for. That, of course, we're super excited to show you some content later today. Won't get into spoilers right now. The campaign has been fun. Like we mentioned before, it's been really good to see the engagement from the community. There's a lot of people who are extremely excited to see all these toys come to life again in the tabletop format. It's great to see the love, not only for the art pieces, for the sculpture we've made, but also for the development, the blurbs, the gameplay that we put in there. It's been very rewarding to see. I wish we had more time for this week in review because only a few days from Friday. This is all the mustache I could grow in a few days for my bow. Gosh, there's a little fuzz there.
And Michael, you've been really active on the campaign, interacting with everyone. How was this week for you?
Oh, it's been fun. Namely because in the late evenings, since I am in the last time zone being Pacific, there's a good 4 or 5 hour gap in between Brazil going to sleep and Singapore waking up. So there's just this period that there's just no oversight and just no one to stop me from just posting and commenting whatever I want. So, that's my fun little hours. Last night, we actually asked everyone, what character they wanted a deep dive for. The comment section voted Goddess Tila. So we had a nice little conversation about her skill set and everything. So, that was fun. And we might have some more surprise things like that throughout the next couple days.
Ooh. Well, speaking of Goddess Tila, maybe we can start talking about some of the characters review and take a look at some of the miniatures?
Sure.
I actually love that.
This is perfection. I love it. Oh, yes. Last week we had a snake face incident where he went loose and just disappeared.
Yeah, I found him behind my comp. Reptiles like warm spaces.
Yeah, typical.
All right.
Well, I think we discussed. Go ahead.
This is just one of those scary miniatures because literally just snakes coming from everywhere.
Yeah, production was a bit difficult for this miniature because there were snakes and they were too tiny, and then there were these 2 snakes coming up from his chest that poke out in front of him, and we had to figure out what to do with those. I think Snakeface wins for most amount of snakes on the miniature, even though 17 King Case also has a lot of snakes. I think actually this one has more snakes, although a bit
Yeah,
smaller.
and this one's definitely more, I guess, grim, right? Like Michael said, like if you see
It is
snakes
creepy.
poking out of his eyes, and there's his tongue has sort of a forked end, and there's chew coming from his chest. It's quite a sinister figure.
So this is my question for you guys: are the 2 snakes coming out of his eyes, or do they see out of their tinier eyes?
Ooh. No, he has 4 eyes, right? Because each snake has 2
Yes.
eyes.
Or
Are
is he
those his
blind?
eyes, or is he blind? That's true.
He sees through movement, right? That's how it works.
Let us know in the comments your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I would vote that the snake's eyes are his eyes.
So his
If that's up to voting.
I mean, it may be, but it's all captured by the tongue, right? Just like a real snake. That's how he really senses enemies.
That
That's
is
right, Guile
true.
dropping some science bombs.
Tune in next week for some more snake facts.
Nerds.
All right, let's take a look at something else that we had this week. How about this one?
Yeah.
So that's Laser Light
There.
Skeletor, which was a daily secret review. Some people pointed out that the toy was not available, I believe, widely in the US. So he's one that we wanted to sort of incorporate and bring that part of the IP as well. And of course, the super cool, from the future experience from him already suggests a lot of different mechanics and different gameplay for that guy.
And more importantly, it
What can you
also
guys
rounds
tell
out the
us?
fact that you can have the 3rd Skeletor on your team with Corebox, Terror Claws, and Laser Light now.
we go full Skeletor.
Yep.
I
No,
saw-
don't go full Skeletor. That's dangerous.
I saw people saying, let's have the slot for the power cubes in the back because the toy had a battery tray on the backpack. That's how that thing lit up.
Ooh. What can you guys tell us about gameplay for this guy?
Well, he as most alternate sculpts, they sure have some of the same flavor as other Skeletors, but they really differ by the weapon that they're using. So their offensive abilities, some skills of his are really different. So he plays in a different manner.
So in the Corebox Skeletor, you have he's almost got the he's more of a support piece, and then also has his range combat capabilities, and then you can build him up to eventually get on Panther or his Master of Evil ability. So he acts as kind of a dark manipulator style. And then you have Terror Claws, which is just your melee focused one that has a lot of kind of life drain and then also terrifying effects. So he can daze, cause enemies to run away. And then you have Laser Light, who almost kind of rounds out the 3 as a range kind of option, where he has a lot of AoE attacks. He's got a lot of just overpowered, not overpowered, but overpowering hits with his range staff and whatnot. He definitely can just channel a huge amount of power into his attacks to just cause a lot of big explosions and big nasty effects. So if you're the type that just, wants to just rampantly just start throwing down, energy blast and just using a ton of power to cause chaos on the battlefield, then you're going to want the Laser Light variant.
Really cool. I see a question in the
Did Laser Light just take out Elena?
Yeah,
I think he did.
She's apparently having connection issues, but I think this is just in part due to how the more accurate her Orko costume, the more unreliable her connection is becoming.
Yeah.
That's so fitting.
Well, there we can
So-
see Cringer, right?
Cringer, who is a Kickstarter exclusive model. Hang on. So the question came up. I'll let Michael handle this one. Can you have a team of nothing but Skeletors, Michael?
Yeah, as we just said, you can absolutely, if you're playing free for all mode, just have 3 Skeletors, duking it out. Granted, you would need 4 to play a full setup with the players, but you can play between 1 and 3 or 1 and 4 characters, regardless of your number of players. Well, okay, if you have 4 players, you need 4. So someone's going to have to be the lackey there. So I'd recommend a team of I don't know, Leo. What do you think is the fourth person in that Skeletor trio?
Well, I guess the most appropriate one would be like the dumbest one, right? So,
I think your mind went to the same place I did.
Yeah, so I guess Beastman.
Yeah, three Skeletors and
Or
Beastman. Yeah.
there is. We're not saying anything, right? We're not saying what it is, but it could be Scareglow, right? Scareglow also works, kind of.
I guess that almost seems a little too competent, though. I like the idea of just the three Skeletors, all of them bossing around Beastman.
Yeah, that looks much better. Everyone uses the command. Yeah.
He doesn't even deserve to be on the stand. I'm just going to leave him by the side.
Well, they wouldn't let him on the stand, you know that. He'd be off to the side. Or he'd be the one holding it up.
Right.
Carry me, you fool.
It seems like the connection in Trollan has been established, maybe. Perhaps.
She has muted herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're muted.
The magics are strong in Trollan.
I think we can move on.
Okay.
I remember when we were doing production for this, it was very worrying that the size difference for Cringer versus Battle Cat was like, is that actually how it is? And apparently this is the correct scale.
Yeah, there's
Like
two.
that's massive.
Yeah, but it's interesting. There's two facts to this, right? Number one, he does go through a transformation. So when the power sword, when He-Man extends the power sword, he really grows a lot. You can see that on not only the animation but also the sort of the IP. He gains his full size as Battle Cat, but also from the gameplay's perspective, we knew from the get-go that we wanted Battle Cat to be a mount that occupies 2 hexes, and also Cringer to be a single hex sort of figure. So that's why you see that we tried as much as possible, even the pose, to take up as much space as possible and be as close to scale as we could. And that I just love that pose. Like we spent some time trying to find the cool pose for Cringer. And that's the like from the intro, just prior to being struck by the transformation effect. That's him just cowering in fear. There, that we were animation bits from the intro, just to find the right recognizable shape there.
Yeah, that's like his trademark move, right? He always does that, like a bunch of times.
I remember during the Kickstarter comments, we did have some people asking for, can we get playable versions of Adam and Cringer? And no. And the reason for that is pretty simple. You would have one ability the entire game, and that is hide, or turn into the other characters.
I actually saw some backers saying, I'll start the game with Adam on the board, and after a few turns or after X amount of time, I'll just make him transform into He-Man. That's more power to you. That's cool.
Well, we actually have a scenario that does that already. So, I mean, feel free to play that if you will, but we've kind of already got you covered in that one.
There you go. Who else
I
you've got for us,
realized I
Greg?
was muted. Sorry. Back now.
Yeah.
Helena, again, the more technical mistakes that happen and everything, the more appropriate it is. So, it's all on purpose.
I teleported away. When I came back, my voice took a while. These things happen. Well, what are we looking at now?
So we're looking at Battle Axe He-Man, which was another daily secret reveal that we already unveiled. He's our homage to the original toy. Like, we really wanted to make sure, even hearkening to the beginnings of conversation with Mattel. What are you doing, Kenneth? That's not He-Man.
Yeah, that's that loser Adam.
But yeah, even harkening to the very beginning conversations, right, with Mattel, when we're figuring out the roster, the characters, who we could and who we could not include into the campaign, we wanted to have He-Man, our base He-Man, to have this sort of power, and that very iconic pose. But we also wanted to make a homage to the original toy. We wanted to make a different take that would be a lot more action driven, a lot more, as Michael likes to put it, the berserking barbarian, right? Like a lot more, rage, furious kind of gameplay, and using, showing shield and battle axe.
Really cool.
I saw someone asking why wasn't Adam made smaller? He is a tad smaller. He's a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
A little bit smaller.
You could play a team of full He-Man. You just have to use Faker as well.
Faker, we actually never really talked about him too much because he was just, the pledge exclusive in the campaign. And we won't go into him too much in here. But he does have one of my favorite powers in the game of just, I have your power.
Yeah, that's great.
But yeah, so the cool thing about Faker is that he has a split mix of He-Man's abilities and his own, which is all based around just duping your enemies to make them not attack you or, turn their backs to you. And all those type of so he almost plays like a He-Man backstabbing rogue, and that's just the fact of you got your barbarian that multi-class into rogue.
So if you have a team of only He-Mans and a team of only Skeletors, you would have Faker in one and apparently Scareglow in the other.
Yes.
I saw some people
Beastman,
even
sure.
suggesting Prince Adam for some reason to be there as well.
Why Prince Adam? Non-related at all.
Yeah, I don't think those guys are even friends.
Yeah.
So
They
there we
never,
have.
they never hang
They
out.
even know each other. I haven't seen them in the same place really. So
They must really hate each other. Yeah.
There we have Goddess Tila and Tila from the core from the core box. Goddess Tila, another recent daily review that we had. Another one of those figures where we wanted to pay homage to the mini comics and to the original toy, which had the snake headdress and the serpent staff. Definitely along those lines that we wanted to make sure to cover this iconic character there too.
And we're not going to talk too much about Goddess Tila because there's an entire talk about her in the comments section that we had.
This is something people have been requested from the moment we first posted this mini. I'm really excited. People got it.
So it's interesting. This one on a live before the campaign rolled in, we almost got too close to talking about him. Right? I think one of us talked about maybe clouds or poison clouds or something, kind of alluding to him. And so Stinkor is, of course, a fan favorite. Some people, of course, remember that he's on the original toy line. He was a mix, I think, of Merman and Mechanics torso piece.
Yeah.
But of course, he's given his whole storyline, his entire power, and a lot of people were waiting for Stinkor. Very happy to see the reaction from backers yesterday. It's a figure that we were excited to see how would be the reaction for.
This is another one people have been requested for a long time. Ever since we announced the game, I think I've been seeing comments like, will Stinkor be in it? I had no idea this character was this popular. Did you guys know?
yeah,
I know that there's a lot
Yeah?
of
Okay.
it was a lot of infamy around it because they had the patchouli mixed in with the mold to make it smell. Which basically, if anyone doesn't know what that smells like, just picture something like an old room or mothballs or something along in there, and you get a good idea. But some people even say that to this day, some of those miniatures still retain that smell.
That's a smelly
I
smelly
actually,
that's
action figure.
yeah, smelling power. I actually saw backers saying on the campaign like mine still stinks.
That's such a majestic miniature, man.
Yes,
I'm
and that
sure
brings
that-
us to Swiftwind.
Oh my god!
I see
I'm
Kenneth
actually
trying to
dazed.
add another figure for scale. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, that was what I was trying to
Yes.
do, but I don't think I could do it. Actually,
It's
I
just
can't.
too huge. Oh.
It is a bit big, yeah.
So there you have.
So what can you guys
Swiftwind.
tell us about Swiftwind?
So he was a stretch goal. He's one of the mounts, as with the other unmounted figures that we published. The stretch goal sees not only a model but also a scenario that can be played with any mounts. So that's why we sort of pushed him back. You see the tail is serving as a third support there, along with his back hoofs. And myself, I just love the detail on the wings and the armor. It's just such a powerful miniature to see.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's just a cool little duo there as well, just seeing the She-Ra and Swiftwind there just spinning. Yeah, the spinning platform was a fantastic addition, so props up to Kenneth there for that.
I gotta say, I was impressed.
And I think we have the final miniature for this week, which is the Man of the Hour.
Hmm.
Michael.
There.
Do you have Fisto the daily review version on foot, perhaps.
Yep, you can talk about it. I'll need to look around.
Okay. So this one is also one that is a very tricky figure to produce, right? Not only it's a large figure with many parts, and it's a duo, right? So it's Stridor, the mechanical horse, and Fisto. They all have to look properly to scale. They have to look to scale to the other figures. And Fisto is part horse, part mechanical war machine. So getting him just right, definitely on the tricky side. But we're very happy with how he turned. There you go. So very happy with how he turned out. And this one is one from the get-go when we were aligning plans with design. We wanted to make sure that Fisto would be not only on his on foot version, but we also wanted to have sort of a more kind of knight, kind of driving through Eternia version. And so we separated those two even earlier on the process. I think Michael can maybe discuss a bit more on there.
Yeah, so on this one, a lot of the core box mounts and the expansion mounts, you'll see that, like with She-Ra, with Skeletor and Panther and He-Man and Battle Cat, the mounts act as a high tier skill card. Whereas here we actually made Fisto and Stridor and Fisto 2 unique characters because they really do function like pretty drastically different compared to the other ones. Like, okay, when He-Man mounts up on Battle Cat, yeah, he gets a little bit faster and he gains access to Battle Cat, but fundamentally he doesn't really change like what he does. Same thing with Panther and Skeletor for the few times that Skeletor did ride around Panther. But when Fisto actually mounts up and starts attacking on Stridor, most of the time that's the only time he starts using his sword, and he definitely turns into much more like a kind of a cavalry, kind of like knight feeling like attack profile. Namely, I guess because it's hard to run around punching guys while on a horse, so you got the sword. So that was the decision we made there to actually, instead of just making Stridor a high tier upgrade skill, instead it's its own character because he does actually function that differently from when he's on his foot version.
These look
look
amazing, both of them.
Yeah.
But someone in the comments reminded me that we skipped Ladies Leather.
Uh-huh.
I think we don't have the Ladies Leather. I don't think we have the. Do you have the resin with you already, Kenneth?
No, we actually have not received resins from factory yet.
Yeah, she's a later addition to the set. We don't have the resin yet. So we on the campaign we show the render. You can see basically the 3D sculpt, but we don't have the resin just yet. She will be shown in post campaign updates because this is the final weekend review.
Yeah.
So there are two questions in the comments I think are worth going over. One is by Gamers Rush. Will there be a King Hiss on Rex model? So in the Snakeman expansion, we have the Tyrantosaur. That is a mount, and I use that in quotes, but I can't because I'm wearing a Fisto gauntlet. So mount. But that one actually functions differently than the rest because that one has a couple of unique scenarios where in some of them you are trying to actually like take it and mount it. Yes, you can do that. And in others, it's just rampaging across the map. So in that box, it's got basically rules for if it's playing as a mount, which makes it function similar to the other mounts, although it is a lot more powerful. It actually has its own like mini stat block that it gives, whereas the other mounts act as more kind of upgrades. So yeah, it has a couple different ways to how it works depending on the scenario. And the next one is actually the one right below that by Starner. Will this affect balancing? Seems broken for a character to already start mounted. That is again two separate things. Fisto on Stridor is his own full character with full skill progressions versus the other mounts, which are a high tier skill for the other characters. They're not the same thing that you can compare them across. This is not like saying, oh, this character just has 3 levels of red skills. That's not how that works.
You can believe that Michael and myself really care about balance based on our history of games like Song, Bloodborne. Don't worry, we're not going to make anything that is unbalanced really or broken.
I mean, the whole thing there is like when you're mounted, you take up 1 extra space. That's a pro and a con because yes, you get a little bit extra movement, which is already factored into the character's baseline power, skills, and stats. But you also take up an extra space. That means you're suffering more escape damage. Enemies can get around you more. More guys can be around you.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. I see another. It's not a question; it's a comment. But I think it would be interesting if you guys could talk a little bit about it, especially Guilherme and Kenneth. These
Oh, okay.
figures were made from 80s kid love for sure. So I would like you to talk about the team who worked on this.
So that's very true. I think I mentioned on an initial live that we were when we were putting together the team that's working on Clash for Eternia, we went out within our already incredibly talented base of sculptors and artists. Everyone who's working on this, the graphic designers, and we were looking for people who already had a connection with this. There's a lot of people, again, they're our age, right, who grew up with the toys, who have very fond memories. There was a lot of people like the sculptors, the artists, uh, uh, everyone like was really people who by working on Motu, they're not only delivering their best, but they're also reminding, kind of bringing that nostalgia, that familiarity that they had from really watching the cartoons and playing with the toys. Basically, everyone who's working in here is very excited to be working with him, and we were looking for it for a good time. And this is, I think, why I say it's very rewarding to see when people on the comments say, "This is, this does that figure that I had as a toy justice, right? This is what I expected from it." It's very rewarding. Very, there's a lot of very gratifying to hear those type of comments.
Well, I think that brought us up to date, right? We've seen everything revealed so far.
I think so. What does
Yeah,
that mean?
should be it.
That means it's time to start taking a look at the future, I guess. Everyone ready?
Yes.
Let's see what we'll have for today. So that's the Evil Horde, our new expansion dropping today later on. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. That's the expansion we're going to post as when the live is done. We are ecstatic about this one. You guys may have seen a few faces that are probably unexpected in the trailer. So this expansion has a lot of the characters that we really wanted to include into the game, and we're able to do so with the Evil Horde expansion. I think before we go into the miniatures, maybe we want to take a look at some of the suspects there, some cards, some tactics.
Sure. Let's bring them in. The man himself.
The leader of the.
Yep, Leo, take it away.
Yeah, so Hordek, he is the bad guy here. So Hordek, if you know him, he has the history of trying to overcome Skeletor, overcome everything, and just is a more evil guy, I guess. And one of his main characteristic is that he chains magic with mechanical things. So in him, we try to make with augment also, but also not some of his other abilities to buff yourself or allies, right? So as you guys may know, he in the media used to alter other characters that were his like thugs and people who helped him to try to get Eternia. Well, let's do it like that. Yeah, so Hordek's a really cool guy. He's more focused on being able to change other players. He has that supportive aspect, but also has a very scary DPS side with all the powers that he already has. We're not going to show his skills though, only his card.
Anything to add there, Michael?
No, we can move to the next one.
Sure.
So this one I know was heavily requested in the comments.
Oh my god!
And I'm actually I'll let you talk about this one again, Leo, because this is another one of Leo's favorite guys here. So
Just a quick pause. We do have the minis, so Kenneth is showing them on the window there as they're coming up, but we will show them a bit more after after we see some of the cards.
Oh god, this is one of my favorite characters. Really, Modulok is really cool. He has his history is that he was merged by two bounty hunters, and they have.
no, you're thinking of Too Bad there, Leo.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I thought we were talking about Too Bad. Jesus Christ. Okay, yeah, Modulok. Right. Sorry about that. So Modulok, holy crap. Modulok is a ranged DPS. The main part of his skills is that he is able to. Every skill of his has a different part that you can flip with two brains. So even though you can, well, I was very excited about Too Bad. But yeah, Modulok is also really nice. When you pick up his skills with two brains, it makes him very versatile in order to how you want to do the gameplay. Oh god. Anyway, cool guy Modulok, and he's a great asset to the team with as a ranged DPS, and his skills are very versatile because of the two brains. Yes.
And one of the cool things about the toy is that it came in many parts, many ways you could configure the lower body, the number of legs, and we went as far as we could. We made the two heads, the 3 legs pushing there on the 30. We wanted to make sure that he stays within a 1 hex, just of course to make the system and the gameplay a lot more linear when it comes to him. But it's also another figure that we're very happy with how different the pose looks like, how cool the silhouette looks like, and I mean, even I'm just so happy that we're having the turntable today because you can see that the angles as he's rotating there.
Yeah, and the cool thing about Modulok stuff is each one of his skills represents one of the different accessories that the toy had. So, he has I believe his lower level skills are laser pistols and claws, and then his mid tier are extra legs, extra arms, and then he moves up to extra head and regeneration and stuff like that. So, yeah. And all that stuff could be, again, as his 2 brains ability goes, lets you just flip them at semi at will to gain whatever benefit you need whenever he activates.
All right, then moving on to the next one, which I think will be exciting, Shadow Weaver.
Yes.
All right, kids. So today we're going to talk about the moral lessons and responsibilities on the internet. Namely because in our last live stream, we talked about the complications of licensing and rights that happens around specifically She-Ra. And yes, that is a tangled mess. And we very specifically mentioned last time that characters that appeared in only certain mediums like Madame Raz or whatnot would not be available to us. And that's the one we said very specifically, which over the last 5 days has of course morphed into we can't use Madame Raz Shadow Weaver or Horde rates or any of this other stuff here, completely taken from people reading one sentence. So kids, we're going to talk about misinformation spreading on the internet in direct quotes in today's lesson. But so talking not even about gameplay, but just Shadow Weaver in general, this is one of those characters that fell into one of those complicated messes with licensing and Mattel, but they worked with us to acquire Shadow Weaver because we knew that this was one of the big fan favorites. And just as we had previously said in some live streams, and I'm sure it's going to be misquoted this time as well, but we wanted to include every single major character and fan favorite character that we could. Some characters could not be included for a variety of reasons, and just for professional sake and things like that, we're not going to get into specifics of it, but just assume that if a character that's oh man, this is my favorite, or I think this character is really important and they didn't show up, why didn't they? Assume that there was probably a reason behind that comes down to some restriction or some something of that nature. Okay, we're not including guys just because we feel like it. We want to get everyone's favorite out there, but sometimes in the world of approvals, legality, and then specific choices and things like that. It's just not feasible. But we have Shadow Weaver, and that's what's important here. Now, Shadow Weaver is really cool because she is a almost traditional summoning spellcaster, which is probably my favorite archetype in any game. Like I love the whole a warlock style, like I'm gonna summon a bunch of evil stuff and just have dark magics and stuff. That's just a cool concept and class to me. So here we have her with dark magics, which is all about her just generating extra power to specifically feed into her dark summons, which allows her to start summoning Horde Race, which is another character. And I'm sure people are surprised that we're including. But let's move on to their card now. Also, by the way, might be a contestant for my favorite sculpt in the entire game, which Kenneth has very graciously put down on the field down there. Horde Rates are an elite minion. Unlike the other elite minions that have shown up, they have basically no defense, but they make up for it in just raw offensive power. As you see, they boost the attacks of all allies around them. So if you get that covenant of Horde Rates around Shadow Weaver, they all just start launching off these dark magic attacks and dark bolts that are just super strong. And these guys also start feeding your nearby characters and heroes additional power. So this is one of those problems where you don't really want to spend time to waste resources to kill Horde Rates, but if you don't, they're just going to sit there and start buffing all the guys around them. So they're creating one of those threats that you have to deal with, even if you don't want to dedicate the resources to. They're not very hard to take down, but the problem is Shadow Weaver is also just going to keep summoning more of them. And I guess we're not going to go into the character specifics too much, but just talking about Shadow Weaver, you'll see this in the full update we do, but the set also comes with a number of Shadow Cage tokens, and that is a unique ability to Shadow Weaver, much like the Stink Clouds to Stinkor or the water tokens for Mermista and Merman, where Shadow Weaver can actually take skills that start throwing down shadow cages on enemy characters that will force them to actually spend actions to just bust out of and everything. Otherwise, they're just kind of stuck there. So she definitely has that controller aspect to her where she can start manipulating the battlefield and just creates a lot of bad decisions for players.
You previously said that the minion in the Snake Mountain set was also among your favorites, right, Michael?
I like the minion sculpts. I mean, they're cool. I mean, characters are fine, but I like the generic guys as well. And that's actually... Okay, moving on to the next one as well. This is going to show my bias because now we're going to talk about the Horde Troopers, which are just really cool because they're more like just robot guys. And I like the robot aesthetics, and I like the kind of evil sorcerer style aesthetics. So this whole expansion is just right up my alley. But these are Horde Troopers, which these are a fun little minion here because first off, they're a ranged minion. But secondly, they have one of the most unique skills in the game, which is representative of what the toys did, is that they can self-destruct whenever they're destroyed. So while they're ranged, if the enemy gets close enough to actually take them out, then they run the risk of oh, you're going to kill this minion here, which has no defense and the slightest at all. But you run the risk of taking extra damage when you blow it up. And I love it because so many characters in this expansion are all about just creating bad decisions for your opponent where there are two bad options and they just kind of have to deal with what is the least bad one at the time.
And I saw a few questions there. Just to clarify, Horde Troopers are regular minions, so there's 8 of them in the box. In 2 sculpts that you can see there on Kenneth's screen, 4 of each. And Horde Wraith, the elite minion, has 3 copies of in the core box. They, as Michael said, they form a little coven together, right?
Speaking of minis, let's see them a little bit bigger. Can I remove the cards? Are you done?
My cards.
Yeah, Leo, anything else you want to add about the expansion?
No,
Hello,
the
minis.
Horde Wraith looks really cool, especially the cape thing and the staff. I really like.
Shall we start from the top? Are we
Yes.
doing Horde
Let's
first?
start-
Yeah.
Yes, Hordak.
Hello there.
Give me a moment. There we go.
There's
Really
Hordak
cool
there.
dynamic cape right there. I'm a fan of capes.
That cape was hard to get. We worked on that sculpt a lot. That was sculpted by Dek Zielinski, and we kept trying to figure out how to connect the back of the cowl to the cape and how to make it flow, sort of embracing the body, and still being a producible piece. Right, you can't have any gaps. The plastic has to get in there into the molds. It was difficult to get, but we're very, very happy with the overall figure. And of course, the pose is like the iconic poster pose. with the arm out with the imp and the staff under the hand. It's something that I think it will resonate with people, with fans. Who's next, Kenneth?
Let's just go through the ones that we've already seen. So let's go Modulok.
Modulok.
Yeah, that's a fun mini.
Bartek was very heavy-handed on them.
I just like the serious head and the derpy head.
Exactly. Yeah.
We have Shadow Weaver.
Next up. Yeah, Shadow Weaver. I saw everyone in the comments when we showed the trailer, and they were like, I see Shadow Weaver. Is that Shadow Weaver? Yes, that's Shadow Weaver.
Yep, and we wanted to make sure that we get, we chose a cool, casting, a mids casting sort of pose, good, easy silhouette, easy to read, but also one of the key poses from the introduction to She-Ra, the cartoon. So we were looking for something very, instantly recognizable.
And also, again, props out to Mattel here, because they could have very easily just said, like, no, don't include her or whatnot, but they actually went out of their way to allow us to include her in the game. So, again, props to everyone who's working with us at Mattel.
Absolutely.
Up next.
The Horde
Ooh,
Wraith.
the Horde Wraith.
Also, props to them for the exact same reason.
Yeah, they came together, right? We're asking for them, for her and the Horde Wraiths, sort of in a bundle. We were playing with the idea of them being floating. As you can see there, you can't really see the direct connection to the ground, so it's in the wave and in the ebb of the cape to make them float in there. And Michael early on had this idea of just making the magic fire there on the hand to kind of bring the hammered idea home.
I'm sorry, but again, like, that is just such a good looking sculpt. Like, I'm calling it right now. Like, that is my favorite sculpt in the game. I'm just saying it.
Love
Kudos
to
to
the
Edgar
minions.
Ramos.
And finally, the Horde Trooper. Also very cool looking and very different. Like, the other has this flowing vibe to it, and this one is very robot techy.
Yeah, it's all about the
So nice.
the geometric kind of very hard surfaces, and this one is even the poses is something that we brought from the cartoons and from the comics, but all the detail that you see, the engraving on the armor, is all from the original toys.
Also, very important to note that those are 95% chance those are supposed to be robots. Definitely not guys in suits that, are getting just mowed down constantly. Although it was never exactly clear, but we assume they're robots. I also really want to see someone just model those, really just wailing on some electric guitars.
Absolutely, it's perfect. Someone's asking for a Mantana. Do you have a Mantana?
Yeah, let's move on to the minis we haven't shown yet.
All right.
See, you thought the 3 legs on Modulok were cool. Well,
You look at that.
So that one is also tricky to work with. And not only all the amount of detail, the granular fine detail on the figure, but the eyes poking out. So that's something that we were talking to Mattel. Why originally, we know that's the cool part of it. The eyes were a lot closer to the face, and the stalks, right? The eye stalks were also a bit chunkier, sort of to support. We were working through with them to make sure that we got the eyes popping out action as part of the figure. It's something we definitely wanted to have, that silhouette of the eyes even being above the headline there.
I have to imagine that this was probably just a overly tricky miniature to sculpt with the extra legs and especially the eyes, and yeah.
But it pays off so well, right? The silhouette's so cool.
It is a funny story that we sculpt our miniatures based on height to eyes, and then when we sculpted this, they didn't know where to draw the line. Where is the, do we do it at the eye sockets or do it at eyeballs?
Yeah. I guess it's the same thing to our Kenneth. Where was this during the snake face conversation?
Right. I think somebody asked for Grizzlor.
Yes.
Let's move through the whole box. I mean, we're already mostly there.
I love that one. I mean, to me personally, Grizzlor the toy is basically a
fur ball.
Fur ball, right? With arms and legs poking out. This was incredibly hard to get on a plastic, on PVC to get it right. We spent a lot of time working on the strands of hair, like not only are they individually sculpted and placed there and sort of following the flow? And you still have to have this sort of kind of potato-looking torso. You still have to have that sort of shape for the character to be him. But the strands are so detailed. I don't think we can even see from, but even the individual strands have detail on them, so that it really feels like fur when you find the figure. This is one of my favorites. It was a lot of fun to work with.
So
I remember we went through a few iterations of before we finally got to something that we liked.
another fun fact about this one, and Leo, I'm sure you remember this. Most of the models we have, crossbows, exactly. They're sculpted with a lot of the accessories that came in the toys, and with the Princess of Power line and She-Ra, there are two things that kind of got repeated a lot: is crossbows in various colors for all of the Evil Horde, and then shields, the exact same mold in various colors for all of the She-Ra characters. And so that was another back and forth we had with Mattel, because again, we were staying very true to the toy line, but that becomes a little tricky when every single one of your characters is wielding the same shield and every single one of your characters has the same crossbow accessory. So that was a conversation that we got to have, where it's like, guys, we kind of want to tone down the crossbows just a little bit, because we got Grizzlor, Mantina, and again, that was a very clear direction that we had, was that we needed to follow the original toy line, and that was part of that was one of the design decisions that Mattel specifically wanted, which we agreed on. But then it comes down to these things of crossbows everywhere, shields everywhere. So
that scene that Kenneth has there is just so it's perfect. It's Beastman about to grab Grizzlor's hand. They're about to cross the street or something, like hey, come here.
I thought you were gonna say an epic battle scene, but I guess that's much more wholesome.
Yeah,
I thought they were going to high five.
Who else you got for us? Catra. I saw people asking for Catra. We do have Catra, another one that we worked with Mattel to get. And you can see that this one we were debating whether she would have the mask on or not, which is an accessory for the original toy. And I particularly just love the strong, in action, moving into action pose, sword ready at the ready, but the hair is what makes it for me. The hair kind of flowing this sort of S shape around, contouring the figure, and the detail that we have there, to me, is just awesome.
Yeah.
So this is a fun fact that I can't think we'll get in trouble for talking about, but it's definitely one of those on the lines for me. So Catra does have the ability to transform into her cat form as one of her actually character skill that she has. Unfortunately, we were not able to make a transformed version of her in the cat form. And again, this is going to harken back to just showing how weird some of those licensing and approvals things can happen, because that literally fell into that trap and was not able to be used. But we still wanted to represent that skill of hers in game, so that actually is her player skill, is that she can spend a ton of power to transform into her cat form for the turn and gain some extra movement and attack buffs. But otherwise, she does function as her kind of force commander, battlefield. She's almost that dark mirror version of Tila. She doesn't summon any allies, but she definitely can either be played as a support piece or as just a very vicious frontline fighter. Perfect.
That's an epic battle.
And I think, are we missing someone?
Yes, we are.
Leech,
Yes, we
right? Leech, yes. So
That character.
Leech was also difficult to sculpt. He had this, what is it called?
Suction pads.
Suction pads on hands, and the mouth. Something we also wanted to make sure that you see the flatness of the suction pads, and even the suction cups on the hand as well. But the art suggests that he has teeth on the outside and on the inside. So there was a lot of fun to work with, both on from the art to the silhouette to the sculpts, trying to get him just right. And you can see there that he does in fact have teeth on the side, teeth on the inside, and still have the overall suction cup, suction pad thing.
And most importantly, the suction cups for hands, which are represented by a few of his skills.
Yes.
That is one of those characters that just look terrifying if you imagine him in real
And
life.
one of the coolest ones, really.
Yes, but it's a leech the size of an alligator.
It's really hard to. I'm sorry for saying this because it might ruin it for some people. It's really hard to unsee that he is just accidentally, like, he's carrying 2 bowls and has accidentally spilled his contents and is now just very angry about it, like he's dropped his dinner. And once I saw that, it's very hard to unsee.
Cool. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. Cannot
We
unsee
actually have a
truly.
mount.
We're missing 2, I think, right? We have a Horde
Yes.
on Mantasaur.
Let me bring him in.
Oh, that one.
Get
Oh,
us
wow.
back.
Hold on.
That one's cool.
Wow.
Crossbows,
hello there.
baby.
Crossbows.
Jesus. He looks
So this
good.
one is the mounted version of Horde on Mantasaur, which is expressed through one of the late game abilities, much like He-Man on Battle Cat and Skeletor on Panther. This is just such a cool looking, toy from that was came along with Horde in a few the packagings, and it's something that we definitely wanted to get there. We played a lot with the scale on this one to make sure that Horde on Mantasaur would be to scale to the regular version, and Mantasaur itself is still within scale to the other figures.
Yeah, that is very different from the other mounts, though, right? He is a lot thinner, and it
creepier.
has so much detail. Yes, also that.
It is creepy just because it has that like mechanical, like mantises already look creepy and this one's now mechanical. I have to say, I think that the She-Ra and Swiftwind is still probably my favorite mount, but this one wins out on creep factor.
Yep.
I guess She-Ra and Swiftwind is like epic. Well, this one is like super neat. Like it's the cool point at the curve where it's like good. Yeah.
Yeah, this model is much more unsettling. Like, okay, so if you see like She-Ra and Swiftwind coming to attack you, that's trouble. If you see whatever Hordak is and riding a Mantasaur at you, that's just nope. I'm just gonna nope right out of there. I'm not fighting that thing.
Yeah. That's like the sweet spot. Yeah.
I saw a few people asking whether this expansion is exclusive. So the expansion itself, it's not. This follows a format like She-Ra and the Great Rebellion, where everything we've shown so far is part of the expansion. But there is one Kickstarter exclusive figure for getting the expansion either on during the campaign or on the Pledge Manager, which is Mantasaur as a mount by itself. So just like the other mounts, this is a more modular version of him, where he plays in the scenario, and basically, according to the scenario rules, other characters can be said to be riding him.
Yep. So that means any character, can potentially, mount up on Mantasaur here and become just a terrifying force of nature. Ugh.
Would you though? Because I would not. I would just
Would you ride a
just
Mantasaur?
nope right out of there.
It's one of those like situations where, listen, if you're not doing it, someone else is. So you might as well just be screaming while on top of it versus being in front of it.
There
Good
you go.
point. Good point. Well, we'll take your
You've got
questions
two
now.
minutes.
We're almost at the end, but if you have questions about this expansion, and I'm sure you have many, ask them away. We'll get to your answers. While we talk about this thing that Kenneth did, who is that? Who is trying to get on
It's
Mantasaur?
Fisto and
It's
Mantasaur.
himself. Right?
He's trying so hard.
Yes.
He's not happy about it, but he's getting on there.
He's doing his best. He's trying.
So
Please,
I
Mantasaur.
I saw a question from Ricardo just now. He asked if this is the last expansion. So
Yes.
this is the last expansion. We will bundle this with a few special offers, which we're not going to discuss the particulars now, but right after the live is ended, we will open up a few more options that include the expansions and the Evil Horde.
Okay. How many scenarios are in the core box?
So as we spoke about a couple times in the comments now, in the core box, we currently have at least 10 that we're happy with, but we're adding in more. Again, that final number has not been set. And this is another one of those like lessons of the internet thing, which I made very clear in the comments that, we have our minimal number of scenarios that we are working with right now that we have that were, we've tested, we're happy with, we haven't found game breaking. And we're going to add as many of those in as we can within reason. It's just that each of the scenarios that we make, we want them to be a unique gameplay experience and, actually be meaningful, for when you're playing them. So, it's one of those situations where, like, could we have gone, oh, yeah, we're going to have 50 scenarios and then 40 of them are just variations of going and punching each other? That's not fun. We have a mixture of open scenarios, which are just scenarios that you can play either side as the controller or the players as, which have much more kind of open objectives and things you're trying to accomplish. We have narrative scenarios that are much more story driven, like, again, escorting Queen Marlena across the battlefield, helping King Randor as he's trying to withstand a castle siege, trying to kidnap guys as the evil warriors. And then we have our AI scenarios, which, again, to talk about that more, we have a full update covering that, so we're not going to go into too much detail. But the AI scenarios are ones that are set up very much to play as the AI versus co-op. A lot of the other scenarios can probably function if they're piloted by the AI, but we're not designated in them as such because there's always the chance that they don't really work for that. We're building specific scenarios for co-op, for that reason. Because, like, okay, just giving two examples, the same two I've been giving over the last week. The brawl scenario, the one I was talking about at the very beginning, the very easy just going and punching each other scenario. There's really no reason that one can't be played as just like AI, because that's what you tell the AI to go beat someone up. That's what it does the best anyway. But then you have another scenario like the Relic, where the controller is secretly assigning a relic to one of their characters and having to, in secret, escort them across the battlefield without the players figuring out who it is. Well, that actually requires an element of, like, bluffing and, outsmarting your opponents. That's not something the AI can really easily do, because it might just take its guy who has the relic and start charging them at an enemy. So that one doesn't function as an AI. So we're not labeling it as an AI scenario. But so anyway, the answer is, for that, we have at least 10 AI and at least 10 open and narrative scenarios in the core box, and at least 6 AI scenarios, so 16 there. But we're seeing exactly what those finals numbers will be. Those numbers might be higher, might be a little bit lower. I can't picture them being lower, but we're going to add as many as we can, as long as they're all unique and actually, like, playable. Again, I could easily tell you right now, oh yeah, there's 50, and we could make 40 of them slight variations of the same scenario, where it's like, oh look, these objectives shifted over 2 spaces, or this one has 3 objectives instead of 5. That's the same scenario. So
Michael, what was the lesson for today, Michael? Was to not spread information that people will misunderstand.
I mean, this is one of those things where, like, I would very much like to. It's going to happen regardless. I'm sure an hour after this, we're going to see, like, there could have been 50 scenarios, but they didn't. So, by the way, kids, I'm putting this responsibility on you to take to the comments section. And when you see misinformation spreaded, snuff it out immediately. Do your part to help us. I almost went to a Smokey, do your part to prevent forest fires. I'm like, wait a minute, that's Smokey the Bear, not Masters of the Universe. I mean, they're basically the same thing, right?
Well, I think that was the time we had for today, and you even gave the moral of today's story. So I guess that's our cue to wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you all for joining us. Tonight we will reach the final 48 hours of the campaign. Is that right?
That's correct. We're almost entering the final stretch.
That's very cool. If this is your first time following a campaign of ours, that is some crazy time, so follow closely. I guess I will see you all very soon, and you all on the comment section in the campaign.
Helena, I am terribly sorry. I am sorry to cut you off here. We cannot check out immediately because, remember, Leo almost got us in trouble and has to make up for it. And he thought he was getting out of it.
No, I didn't. I was waiting. I was waiting to get, like, final.
So is it time for the secret stretch goal? Is that it?
It is time for the secret stretch goal.
Okay, so to make up for every mistake I have made in my entire life. I will give you this.
Helena, kick us out so that he gets a big screen.
Oh my God.
Everyone.
That's fine. Okay.
Wait, I have to do one more, which is the second part after this, which is... No, we're done. Okay.